Okay, picture this with me. You're standing right inside Ollivander's wand shop. Can you smell it? That scent of polished wood and, I don't know, old magic?
Definitely. Boxes everywhere.
Right. Thousands of them stacked high, just kind of shimmering with possibility, waiting. And then you hear it, that whisper. The wand chooses the wizard.
Goosebumps moment. Pure magic.
Totally. But, what actually makes a wand magical? Is it just the person holding it, the witch or wizard?
Or is there more to it?
Yeah. Like, do the materials themselves, the wood on the outside, the core hidden inside, do they have? Like scientific secrets. Stuff even muggles like us could understand.
That's exactly what we're diving into today. Our mission, explore the real-world science behind making wands.
Yeah?
We're going to unpack the amazing properties of different woods, different metals, and figure out how these natural qualities might make one wand, say, perfect for a really powerful spell,
Well,
and another maybe better suited for something quick, a nimble charm.
right. So think of this as your shortcut to understanding a bit of material science. It's a really cool part of science.
Yeah, it is.
And we're doing it through this, magical lens. We've got some surprising facts, some fun comparisons lined up. Get ready to discover the science behind the swish and flick.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's start unpacking this magical mystery. We'll begin with the outside of the wand, the wood.
Right, the casing.
Exactly. So in the wizarding world, wands come from all sorts of trees, right? Oak, holly, willow.
Lots of different types.
But in our world, wood is just one of nature's most amazing materials. It's full of hidden strengths, interesting quirks.
Absolutely. And when scientists study wood, they look at a few key things. First is strength.
Okay, strength, like how tough it is.
Sort of. It's how well the wood resists forces trying to break it. Like if you try to snap a stick,
Gotcha.
then there's flexibility. That's how much it can bend without snapping.
Ah, okay. Bendiness.
Exactly. And you can imagine, right? Too stiff and snap, too bendy, and maybe it's not great for powerful magic.
Weak.
Yeah.
Then we have durability. That's basically how long it lasts, how well it resists wearing out.
Makes sense.
And the perfect mix, that balance between being strong and being flexible. Scientists call that elasticity.
Elasticity, okay.
Getting that balance just right is super important for building a bridge or,
Crafting a powerful magic wand.
precisely.
I can totally picture that. It's like comparing a really solid oak table, super strong, doesn't move, with maybe a thin willow branch you find by a river, really bendy.
Right. Both wood, totally different properties.
That balance, that elasticity, it's key, whether you're building a treehouse or, well, casting a charm. So what are some really amazing woods out there? Any standouts?
Oh, definitely. A fantastic one is Lignum vitae.
Lignum vitae, what's that mean?
It actually means wood of life in Latin.
Yeah.
People way back thought it had medicinal uses, which is interesting in itself.
Huh, wood of life. Cool.
But its physical properties are just astonishing. It's incredibly dense, like really packed together.
Dense, how dense? So dense that, well, most wood floats, right?
Yeah.
Lignum vitae sinks, drops like a rock in water.
Ooh, no way. It sinks.
Yep, because it's just so packed with fibers. And it's not just dense, it's incredibly hard. It's way up there on the Janka hardness scale, one of the hardest woods known.
So, really tough to dent or scratch.
Extremely tough, which is why, historically, people used it for things needing extreme durability.
Right.
Think about ship bearings parts deep in a ship that needed to last forever in salty water.
Wow. Ship bearings.
And get this, it's self-lubricating. So those bearings rarely needed replacing. Even a famous clockmaker, John Harrison, used it in his clocks because it didn't need oil.
Self-lubricating wood. That's amazing.
Isn't it? So think about Merlin. In T.H. White's The Once and Future King, Merlin's wand is made of lignum vitae.
Oh, yeah.
Hints at that legendary strength, right? Enduring power for really serious magic. Imagine a wand that just never wears out.
That makes so much sense. A wand for someone really powerful, really persistent. Maybe a lignum vitae wand chooses a wizard whose magic is meant to last through ages. Okay, cool. What about something else?
All right, let's look at white ash.
Ash. Okay, I've heard of ash.
It's lighter than lignum vitae, definitely, but it still has this really great balance of strength and flexibility.
Strong and flexible. What's something common made from white ash? Something that needs that combo.
Think sports, something you swing.
Oh, like a baseball bat.
Exactly. Baseball bats. Ash is perfect because it needs to be tough enough to hit a fast pitch, right? But it also needs a bit of give, that flexibility, so it doesn't just shatter on impact.
Right. You need that springiness.
Precisely.
So an ash wand. I can picture it. Strong, but responsive.
Huh.
Good for spells needing power and precision, like aiming that perfect hit.
You got it.
Maybe an ash wand chooses a wizard who's, I don't know, strong but also quick-witted, adaptable but powerful.
It's a fascinating thought, isn't it? How the material might match the magic style. And this kind of leads us to understanding wood more broadly.
Okay.
You hear terms like hardwood and softwood, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, they can be a bit misleading. Get this. Balsa wood. Super soft, super light.
Yeah, easy to carve.
It's actually classified as a hardwood.
What?
No way! Why? Because the classification isn't really about how hard it feels. It's about the type of tree. Hardwoods come from broad-leaved trees. Softwoods from trees with needles, like pines.
Huh. Okay, that's weird but interesting.
And here's another cool thing. Wood is anisotropic.
And it's a what?
Anisotropic. Big word, simple idea. It just means wood isn't the same in all directions. Meaning its strength, its flexibility, all its properties change depending on which way you push or pull it. Along the grain is different from across the grain, which is different from perpendicular to the growth rings.
Whoa, so like one direction might be really strong, but another direction could be weaker.
Exactly.
So if you're making a wand, you have to cut the wood just right, paying attention to the grain.
Precisely. A master wand maker, just like any skilled woodworker, would absolutely need to understand that. How to cut it to maximize its strength and, well, magical potential. It's not just about looking pretty.
Right. It needs to work.
And one more thing about wood. Moisture. Wood is hygroscopic.
Hydroscopic, water-liking.
Kinda. It means it loves to absorb moisture from the air when it's damp and release it when the air is dry.
Oh, like when wooden drawers get sticky in the summer.
Exactly that. Or wood floors creak more when it's dry inside. That shrinking and swelling affects its strength and stability too. Generally, drier wood is stronger.
Fascinating. So much going on just in the wood itself.
There really is.
Okay, so we've got the wood, the strong, flexible, sometimes quirky outer layer. But every Harry Potter fan knows that's not the whole story.
Right. There's the core.
The magical core. Harry's has a phoenix feather, right? But for our science deep dive, let's imagine the cores are made of different metals.
Okay, metals. Now we switch gears a bit and talk about a different property. Electrical conductivity.
Conductivity, like conducting electricity.
Exactly. Think of it like this. Some materials are like super smooth slides for electricity. It flows through them really easily, really fast. Good conductors.
What's smooth slide? Got it.
Other materials are more like bumpy, rocky paths. Electricity finds it hard to get through. They resist the flow.
Bumpy path. Okay.
That resistance is called electrical resistivity. So if something has low resistivity, it means it has high conductivity. The smoother the slide, the less resistance.
Low resistance, high conductivity.
Yep.
Smooth slide. Okay, I think I get it. So for magic, you'd want a super smooth slide, right? A really good conductor.
You'd think so. And if you're looking for a fantastic conductor in our world,
Copper. Is it copper?
you got it. Copper. Symbol Q, atomic number 29. It's pretty soft, malleable, meaning you can hammer it into shapes, and ductile, you can draw it into wires. Plus it has that distinct pinkish orange color.
Yeah, like pennies, but shinier sometimes.
Right. And its key property, incredibly high electrical conductivity. It's actually the second best pure metal conductor out there.
Second best. What's first?
Silver. But silver is much more expensive.
Ah, okay. So copper's the practical champion.
Pretty much. Humans have used copper for ages, way back to 8000 BC, one of the first metals ever used.
Wow, that's old.
And around 3500 BC, it was the first metal people figured out how to mix with another metal tin to make bronze. Huge deal, the Bronze Age.
Right.
Today, something like 60% of all copper mined goes into electrical wire and cables.
Because it's such a good conductor.
Exactly. Great conductivity, it's strong enough, and it's easy to solder to join wires together.
So a copper core in a wand. You can just imagine it channeling magic like electricity. Super fast, super smooth, really powerful.
It's like the superhighway for spells.
Totally. And here's a cool copper fun fact. It's also biostatic.
Biostatic, what's that?
It means bacteria and other little germs just don't like growing on it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. That's why ancient people used copper pots to store water. It helped keep it clean. And even now, some hospitals use copper on things like doorknobs and surfaces to help stop germ spreading.
It's amazing. So it's a great conductor and it helps keep things clean. What a metal.
Right. So maybe a copper-cored wand chooses a wizard with a really natural, powerful flow of magic. Someone whose spells need to fly instantly, like a top duelist.
Could be. It fits. Now let's compare copper to, say, iron.
Iron. Okay, iron's strong.
Mm.
Like really strong. Thinking iron gates, maybe those big beams in buildings.
Exactly. Iron is super strong, great for structure, but conductivity, not nearly as good as copper. Its resistivity is much higher.
So electricity, or maybe magic, flows through it much slower. Bumpier path.
Much bumpier path, yeah. So an iron cord wand might feel heavy, solid. Maybe it's good for a wizard who relies on, like, brute strength. Grounded magic.
Less speed, more raw force.
Perhaps. Channeling magic in a big, powerful burst, maybe less efficiently than copper. Maybe it chooses a wizard who's all about raw power and determination.
Interesting contrast. Okay, what about aluminum? Like in foil?
Yep, same stuff. Aluminum is much lighter than copper or iron. That's a big difference.
Yeah, foil is super light.
And its conductivity, it's pretty good. Better than iron, for sure. It ranks after silver, copper, and gold. So, decent, but still not as good as copper.
Lighter, but less conductive than copper.
Okay.
So think about an aluminum cord wand. It would feel quick, light in your hand.
Agile.
Exactly. Maybe perfect for fast spells, quick movements, where speed is more important than sheer raw power.
Like maybe a Quidditch Seeker's wand, someone needing lightning reflexes and quick thinking.
That fits perfectly.
Mm.
It's all about matching the material's properties to the magical purpose.
So just to recap the conductivity order, silver's best,
Silver number 1, then copper,
then gold.
then gold, then aluminum, then iron, out of the ones we've discussed.
Okay. And wood is way down, like off the chart bad at conducting.
Terrible conductor, especially dry wood, which really shows why that metal core seems so important for channeling magic effectively. Right, the wood gives structure and feel, the metal gives the pathway.
You got it. And just quickly, the shape matters too. A thick, short wire conducts better than a thin, long one. So wand dimensions could even play a role.
Wow, so much to think about. Okay, aspiring wand makers out there, let's try a mini experiment. Find 2 sticks or pencils at home. Got them. Okay, maybe find one that feels a bit thicker or heavier and one that's thinner or lighter. Now, gently, try to bend each one. What do you feel?
What do you notice?
The heavier one probably fights back more, right? Resists bending. Strong, but kind of stiff. And the lighter one probably bends more easily. Flexible, but maybe feels a bit weaker.
That's exactly the kind of thing scientists measure, that balance between density, strength, flexibility, elasticity. It determines if something's good for building or,
Making a perfect wand.
Right.
So when Ollivander runs his fingers along those woods,
Yeah.
he's not just checking if they look nice. He's doing a science check. Feeling for that strength, that elasticity, that perfect spring.
Assessing the material properties, absolutely.
And then when he slips in that copper core, boom. The wand becomes this amazing conductor for magic. It's like plugging right into the wizarding world power grid. Science makes the magic happen.
It really does. The science provides the foundation.
So what makes a wand truly magical? We found out it's the incredible science hidden inside.
Yeah.
The wood gives it that essential elasticity, the strength and flexibility to handle the magic without just snapping.
The form and resilience.
And the metal core, especially a great conductor like copper, that's like magic's lightning rod, channeling the energy super fast and powerfully.
It completes the circuit, you could say.
Together, these materials aren't just making a stick, they're creating this perfectly tuned instrument for wizardry, matched by science.
It's a beautiful blend of natural materials and their amazing properties.
Yeah.
Remember, everyone, the world around you is packed with this kind of scientific magic. Next time you hold a pencil and notice a copper wire, or even just look at a big, strong tree in the park, think about the hidden powers those materials hold. Power scientists study every single day.
You might be holding the start of your own magical deep dive into the science of everyday things. Keep exploring, keep asking questions.
Keep that curiosity alive.
And keep the magic of science alive. Now here's a little something to think about.
Ooh, okay.
If a wand really does choose the wizard, do you think it somehow senses the kind of magic that wizard will do?
Yeah.
And does it then match itself, picking the wood and core with the most scientifically perfect properties for that specific type of magic?
That's a deep one. Does the wand know physics?
Right. Does it choose based on material compatibility? Something to ponder.